Thanksgiving comes to us out of the prehistoric dimness, universal to all ages and all faiths. At whatever straws we must grasp, there is always a time for gratitude and new beginnings. J. Robert Moskin. Let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not in temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Welcome to Heresy and Hearsay's Reverend Barney Sermons. I'm Reverend Barney, and you can follow me on Twitter at SethRothII. You can also follow the show on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and any podcast catcher. Just look for Heresy and Hearsay. Please like, share, follow, and subscribe to us. Also, give us a review. That helps others find us. You can find my partner and better half of Heresy and Hearsay's podcasts, September, on Twitch and Twitter at 9 of 12. That's NINEOF12. And you can hear her on the Geek Grills podcast. Heresy and Hearsay has a Patreon site that you can find at patreon.com/heresy and hearsay, where you can visit to help support us. Just $2 a month goes a long way to help us make this humble show. You can also contribute bits in Twitch or subscribe for free if you have Amazon Prime. And if you can't do any of that, if you just share this with your friends, give us a recommendation or a comment down below when we do the YouTube parts of the video. That really helps expand us, because the algorithm for YouTube is horrible. And so letting your friends and family know about this podcast will definitely assist us a great deal in getting new viewers. So today I decided I was going to talk about Thanksgiving. That's why I did the prayer, because that's a common prayer for households to pray. It's not the most common, but it is extremely common for people to pray that for blessing before Thanksgiving. And Thanksgiving, in the modern sense, has become much more divisive, much more, I don't want to say divisive, that's the bad term, much more problematic for people, because we as a nation has become much more tribalistic. We tend to want to have conversations about politics. This may always have been the case, that politics and everything becomes prevalent at Thanksgiving meals, but and I can say that it's been going on at least since the social media age. Before that, I was probably not as aware of it. I normally would avoid those kind of conversations and stuff by going outside or whatever. I live in the South, so 9 times out of 10, even when I was up visiting family, it was warmer and everything else. And also at the time, both my parents were still alive, and things weren't as tense sometimes when it came to that. I think that our family members tended to avoid having certain conversations with my family around, with my parents being around. So, but I noticed that as it got bigger, that and everything else, that, or as they passed away and everything, and everything, that the politics was much more openly talked about. And that is difficult when you are of one mind about politics and other family members are of another mind about politics. And the stories go about having discussions and debates and even arguments, breaking out into huge fights at Thanksgiving. So I wanted to back away from that. Especially, here's the thing, and this is how I term this. There are 363 days a year that you and your family members can discuss politics. Christmas and Thanksgiving, when families get together and everything else, shouldn't be two of those times. Because if you are like me, you're traveling to go see family, and you may have not seen them for many, many months or many, many years, or whatever the case may be. You've not seen family in quite some time, and then to then be stressed out about these conversations because X family member is Y way when it comes to politics, or Z way when it comes to religion, whatever the case may be. And also, there is the simple fact that, um, you know, there's a lot of changes that's happened in the last 10, 20 years as far as these family dinners are concerned. Teenagers or young or millennials or Zoomers, whatever they're called, are coming into their own political ideas, as well as being more comfortable about who they are. So there may be some coming outs and stuff like that that may happen. You tend to want to do that on a non-holiday situation. Do it when you're comfortable. Don't get me wrong. When it comes to coming out and that kind of stuff, I'm a cis heterosexual white male. Do you, as far as that's concerned, if you feel that that is the best place for it, where you'll have the most acceptance or the most chance of acceptance, I can understand that. You do what you need to do. What I'm saying is that let's focus on the politics side and the religious side of Thanksgiving as far as discussions and everything else. I will be putting a link of me and September's discussion about our how to talk to the other side, how to everything else. But I'm coming at this as we're not having a discussion. And that means sometimes swallowing some pride or swallowing whatever. So I'm going to give some things that I think would be helpful. You can take them or leave them. My hope is that some of this may be helpful to make it at least a smooth and enjoyable time. I know that if you have relatives who are huge Trump supporters and who are also, because they're Trump supporters or because of Trump in general, they're able to fly a flag of racism or homophobia or whatever much more proudly, and that can be very troubling and very difficult to deal with. And you have to do what's best for you in those situations. And sometimes those situations are is if the individuals are that toxic to you, if you feel that toxic in that kind of area, then maybe you should think about whether or not you should go in the first place. I'm not saying avoid family members for that reason, because there is a quote that I have no idea where I heard it, but it has been kind of my mantra when it comes to families my entire life since I've heard it. May have come up with it, but I don't think so. I don't think I was that clever to come up with this, but it was the quote is family give. Sorry, try that again, Daniel. God gives us family so that we learn how to talk to people that we normally would cross the street to avoid. And that is true, because we're going to have, Family is your learning ground for communications, for social skills, for everything else. Family is where you learn to navigate difficult situations, because no family is homogenized to the point where everybody thinks the same or acts the same. So, with that being said, here are a couple of things that may help. First off, if possible, if your relationship with family members or whatever are good enough, make it clear, like, look, this year, let's not talk about politics. Let's not talk about what I believe, what you believe, or whatever. There are so much things that we can talk about the world. There are so many good things that we can talk about. There are so many nice things we can talk about, or we can talk about the parade or whatever. Politics isn't everything. Politics isn't in everything. I don't even think politics aren't in the Macy Day Parade. Politics isn't in football. Politics isn't in the turkey and recipes, and that your son is doing really well in math but it's struggling in English, or vice versa. There are so many things that can be talked about. Can we talk about that? Can we leave politics off the table and just have a good time? It may work. Again, you have to be comfortable with the family. That it kind of has to be spread around to everybody in the family, and and you have to, like, if there's someone that's bound and determined, that the rest of the family shuts them down very quickly. So that there can be, if you're not wanting to engage, period, end of story, full stop, communication with the family members and saying, hey, look, we are on different paths when it comes to politics, but I love you as my family. You are my family and I love you. I want to enjoy this time together. Can we not bring this stuff up? That is my first biggest suggestion if you're wanting to avoid it. If you're wanting to engage lightly, not, going into full deep, Trump is a criminal, mastermind who is not mastermind, but a criminal who's also an asshole, sexist pig who 19 women have come forward and said that, he's somehow sexually assaulted him and he was really good friends with Epstein and all that kind of stuff. If you don't, let's just say light politics. And I don't know what your definition of light politics is, so you'll have to make that decision on your own. Never. Three things that I would suggest. First off, listen. And what I mean by listen is not just sit there and absorb and listen to the person, looking at them. Engage, doing what's known as engaged listening, which is affirming that you're paying attention, affirming, ask questions that are, if there's a point that you're not unsure of, or if you just think that if you ask a question, you know find ways to ask questions to show that you are listening, you want some clarification, things like that. Be engaged as a listener. It breaks down a lot of walls, because when people talk about politics, Stephen King talked about this in his book, Gun, his little essay about guns. I think it was called Guns, or it might have been Gun, one of the two. But he talked about how, in discussions about politics, how we tend to be, that we are so busy trying to think of the next thing to say to retort whatever they're saying, that we're not listening. And I admit this is a thing that I can struggle with quite often. I will say that being in customer service as long as I have, as far as my day job is concerned, you tend to learn how to, absorb information and be an engaged listener. And one of the things, and it's a talent for some people, and other people, you have to learn it. But basically, you are an engaged listener. You listen. Two, again, this is for any type of discussion, but like politics or whatever, like politic discussion, um, is that you never match the level. What I mean by that is if they get passionate and they get a little loud and stuff like that, never match that level because it feeds. I know it's hard. I understand that. Trust me, again, as someone who's done over the phone customer service, it is difficult. And I still fail after multiple years of sometimes. You know, it is really hard. But if you can show, or at least try, not to match levels, that doesn't escalate it further. That doesn't raise the level further, as far as engagement, as far as passion levels. And finally, and this may be something you should do at the beginning. It's like, look, you have these opinions. I have my opinions. These are opinions, and we're going to disagree. If you want to have this discussion, that's perfectly fine. I am willing to engage you. However, at the end of it all, we're still family. And so I don't want you to feel that I dislike you or I don't love you because you don't see my point of view. And I hope the same is true for you. That kind of statement really can kind of deflate some harsher debates or some possible harsher debates or possible escalations, because you've put it out there as like, look, we may disagree, but at the end of this, when before or after we've had our meal and everything else, know that you are still my family and I still care about you as my family, and I hope you do the same with me after this debate, even though we may disagree. It puts people on their heels a little bit, and I'm not saying it to do that. What I'm saying is that it kind of settles things back down and makes people, because people, again, and this is me included, will engage in these discussions, and sometimes they lose themselves. And if you put that out there and it's out in the ether, then at that point it's a lot less likely to get worse. I'm not saying it's not possible. There are some people that no matter what is wanting to have that debate and wanting to have that argument and wanting to have that discussion. And that's fine. There are going to be times where discussions are needed. But Thanksgiving and Christmas, I don't think, are the time to try to have those kind of heavy debates. Also, here's the thing. If your uncle was to come up to you and lay out fact upon fact upon fact, and I'm just using uncle as an example, fact upon fact upon fact, that, Trump is actually an angel from God and blah, 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 and these are the facts and everything, it's not going to change your mind how you feel about Trump. The same is true for your uncle. You're not going to change each other's minds. Not in the grand schemes. If you want to have discussions, if you want to change hearts and minds, if you want to try to change people's thoughts, engage them in a way that is good for them, that is in their wheelhouse. Don't come at them. Don't be angry at them. Don't throw facts at them, because throwing a bunch of numbers and stuff doesn't help. Facts only, unfortunately, these days cloud judgment. But let's say you want to take up climate change and talk about it and try to change their minds just a little about climate change. That is something that you could do. You would have to, and I'm no expert on having these discussions, nor about climate change in general. There are thousands upon thousands of articles. You can just Google how to talk about X at Thanksgiving, and you will find them. Again, it is a subject matter that you have to decide if that's something you want to do. However, I think and I feel that discussing ideas is a lot easier than discussing people. Do I personally think Trump is a horrible president and should be impeached and possibly thrown in jail? Yes. Do I think most of his family should be the same way? Yeah, I do. But that's not going to suddenly change anybody else's mind if I throw out all the facts, because the facts are already out there, and if their mind isn't already changed, it's not going to be. Talking about people isn't going to be the answer, and will lead into arguments. Not discussions, not quiet debates, whatever. It's going to lead into full-on arguments and fights, because you're talking about a person. And no matter what you personally think of that person, there has to be some type of personality, and therefore a cult of personality, for that person to have been elected to any type of public office or to be seen as a public figure. And the same goes for me. If this channel and if this podcast ever blows up and becomes huge, me and September are going to be cult of personalities. We are going to be different people. We are going, we will have to deal with that. I personally welcome my, fan overlords and all the trolls that would come with it, but that's another story. But if you talk about Ben Shapiro, who I think is a smarmy, lying, manipulative person, that if he had actually gotten his script purchased and was able to work in Hollywood, we have never heard of him. He's an opportunistic person that is only doing this because he wants to be famous and he wants to be liked. That's my personal opinion on Ben Shapiro. However, talking about Ben Shapiro in that way to someone who is a Ben Shapiro fan is not going to do any good. Even if you list everything that he has ever said that is wrong and incorrect, and that, it is incredibly, silly, or stupid, it's not going to help, to have those discussions, because he's a person and he has a cult of personality. The same with Crowder. There's a blight on YouTube in the system. Anyways, yeah, talking about Crowder, or talking about, before that was Alex Jones, and somehow Rush Limbaugh is still I'm not live, but I wish no ill will on him, but is still broadcasting and people still listen to him. I'm surprised as you are. I'm shocked. Hannity still has listeners. I think Bill O'Reilly is still doing something now. Tucker Carlson has people who listen to him on a nightly basis. So yeah, these are cult of personalities. They have a draw to them by their personalities, and that's not going. And you can't break that. What you can do, however, is possibly talk about ideas, talk about healthcare, talk about. Healthcare is very divisive as well, and everything has become divisive, and understand that. I am not suggesting that you do any of this during Thanksgiving. This is up to you. If you decide that you want to do this over Thanksgiving, you are more than welcome to do so. But that's completely and totally up to you, and that's a decision you have to make on your own. And that's something you have to decide if you want to do that. Personally, I think it would be better if you didn't if you didn't have that discussion. Like I said, there's 363 days a year, or 364, depending if it's a leap year or not. to have these kind of discussions. You know, leave it to the, that's what Facebook, that's what Twitter, that's what emails are for. That's what, messengers are for, and texting is for. That's what phone calls are for. Have these discussions then. Discuss it then. Don't discuss it, during Thanksgiving or the Thanksgiving table while, while Reverend Barney is guarding the creamed corn because it's mine and you've had enough. You can move on to the turkey. Sorry, that was a thing of mine when my grandmother was still alive. That was my. She made the best creamed corn on the planet, and I would basically sit there. I would find the place at the table where the creamed corn was, and if it wasn't anywhere where it was at a chair, I would move it to where it was at a chair, and I then would be the guardian of the creamed corn. They could have whatever else they wanted. They could have 5 or 6 deviled eggs. They could have 30 deviled eggs for all I care. Cream corn, that's what I want, and I want it for, and I want to take whatever is left with me home so that I can have it for 3 more days because it's just amazing. Sorry, that's a little tangent, but I honestly think that if you have the opportunity and if you want to not engage, that, a couple of tips is like, let's say, I said the first thing, which is, have that discussion with family as a whole, or the matriarch or patriarch of the family and be like, hey, look, let's, if it's possible, can we not talk about politics? Can we, talk about 1,000 other things? But let's say you're not able to do that, and let's say, or whatever, and let's say, and again, I'm going to use Uncle because everybody does. Let's say Uncle Jack comes up to you and he want, you're sitting there watching the parade, or you're out having a cigarette, or you're just enjoying getting some fresh air because if you're in a house it gets stuffy, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of cooking going on, it gets warm, sometimes people step outside to get a little fresh air. Let's say Uncle Jack comes with you, comes and wants to talk about politics. And you don't want to. This is not something you want to do today. This is not something you're going to do today if you can help it. You just merely, you merely say to him, look, I respect you and I love you because you're my uncle. I don't want to talk about politics today. I want to enjoy the time with my family. And I don't want to engage in this. I understand you're passionate about this, and I am glad that you have a passion. And I will be more than happy to talk about it any other day of the year. And hand him your phone number, hand him your email, hand him however you want to have that, be it known that you're open to the discussion, even if you're not really open to the discussion. But it shows that you respect the individual, you love the individual, but you're not wanting to do, and you're willing to listen to this individual, but not at this moment, that you want to have time. Let's say you're not in a place like this. Let's say you're at the dinner table, if you, say grace, that's, if you give the blessing, that's fine. Whoever gives the blessing, that's fine. You're about to dig in. And you're passing, everything else and everything else. And let's say Uncle Jack starts, saying, well, I just can't believe how Trump is being treated. And it's like, well, I'm sorry that I'm sorry that what's going on is affecting you this way. However, let us enjoy our meal together. Speak up, don't be afraid. If you get shouted down because everybody else wants to talk about it, fine. Let them shout at you down. But more than likely, nobody wants to have that discussion while they're trying to fight for the only one of the 2 drumsticks. Which, again, why can't scientists come up with more drumsticks? I'm just saying. Anyways, that, most people aren't wanting to have that discussion over the dinner table. There's only a couple people that do. You may be one of those people that enjoy a good, healthy debate. God knows I am. I mean, I'm doing a podcast about, religion and politics, two things you shouldn't talk about, in polite society. But, right now I don't feel we live in much of a polite society, so I feel we should have this discussion. So, but at the same time, when I was seeing my family and stuff, I would have that person who would want to have that debate. And when I got older and everything else, I made it extremely clear. You have ways to get a hold of me. You can get a hold of me anytime you want to, and we can have this debate any other day of the week, any other day of the year except now. And I made it very clear, and it stopped the politics. It stopped that discussion. I had to be forceful about it, unfortunately, because sometimes the hint is not understood. I understand that. And also, I was also having a very bad time, and I let it get to me. So that is one of the other things that I would also suggest is when you're doing this, or when you're planning on your trip, if you're flying, which I wish you best good luck. I know there's a lot of places that are having some issues with flying, especially in and out of like the Midwest right now, because they've gotten like 10,000 feet of snow in a week, in a day. So I wish you all the best of luck when it comes to that. But as far as prepping yourself mentally, I would suggest doing some breathing exercises. Don't let the anxiety get to you. Don't let it build up to you. Don't let it affect you as much as possible. I know there are people who have anxiety disorders and stuff like that, and I understand that what I'm saying is not going to make any difference. You could do all the breathing exercises in the world. You have anxiety issues, and it's irrational, and it's not something you like, and it's not something you can control. But for those of us who have that ability to take a few deep breaths, to breathe in the air, to focus and center ourselves when things are getting bad, close your eyes, find a center point, breathe in and out. Don't let it get to you. Don't let the anger build up in you, because you're wanting to have a good Thanksgiving. You're wanting to have an enjoyable time with your family. That is what this thing tonight is basically about, is about trying to and I know it's hodgepodge and everything else, but trying to find ways to either disengage, not engage, period, or if you're going to engage in a small way, and engage with topics that aren't as divisive as other topics. Again, so many topics are divisive right now and are fueled with extra vitriol and venom, that right now it would not be a good time to have these discussions. Maybe, when you can't talk about climate change without starting a huge giant debate and an argument, then it may be best not to have that discussion. It may not be the best to have discussions about any of this kind of stuff. Talk again. That is up to you, and you can judge your room, quote unquote. But you have to also think of other people in the room, because there may be, you and Uncle Jack may be the people that they know will always have this discussion about politics, and they may not want to deal with that either. Have that, and be like, have that discussion with your family beforehand, or while you've got a couple of days, or I'm going to be posting this on the day before Thanksgiving. So, but have this discussion, before you get there, or when you get there, and have a chance to have that discussion, and be like, look, if people feel uncomfortable, or if there's been some uncomfortability in the past because I've had this discussion about politics, I am truly sorry. If I will do my best not to have to engage in that debate this year and whatever, and do that. Right now, our nation is really divided when it comes to our politics. And as such, it may be more beneficial right now during the holiday season not to engage with family members about politics, because again, family members may be, how we learn how to navigate social structures, but they are the people that back us up when we have nobody else. Normally, don't get me wrong, I understand. I am talking, and please understand, this entire conversation is centered around the fact that your family is, we're dysfunctional, but any family is dysfunctional, but is not toxic or abusive or dangerous. If it is those things, then, do what you feel is best for not getting involved, period, end of story, that is all. Or whatever the case may be, whatever is safe for you as far as that's concerned. I am talking about families that, for the most part, there's no abuse, there's no toxicity for the most part, and everything else. Is families dysfunctional? Of course, we're all dysfunctional. We all have our quirks and our problems, and we all have, some of us have mental illnesses, and some of us are treated and others aren't. And we have to respect and love each other the best we can in those situations. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the kind of the Norman Rockwell family, but they're throwing pies at each other. You know what I mean? It is a typical family. It's a family that you see on sitcoms. They're not the ones that are abusive. You know what I mean? But families that can disagree, and there'll be, because everybody has different personalities, their personalities are going to clash and stuff like that. So it's one of those things where you are different mindsets, and that's fine. But that's what this discussion is about. So I wanted to put that little caveat there about that situation. Again, if your family is religious and you're not, be as respectful as you can, and hopefully they're respectful to you, vice versa, all that kind of stuff. Politics are the same way. If you don't want to engage, there's a few things that I've said on the best thing. And the best thing, honestly, is just communications and having that discussion. It's like, look, I don't want to do this. Do it in a polite way, and then, be a little more forceful if you need to be, and say, look, I do not want to engage in this right now. I appreciate your passion. I can't right now. Let's just enjoy the parade, or let's enjoy the Lions losing another year. They may win because they've improved somewhat, but you know what I'm saying. That being said, and everything else that is going on, just the holiday season is coming up, and Black Friday. That's where things start to get iffy. If you're going to go and engage in Black Friday, please do it on Friday. I don't, this is Barney being a little more preachy. Send a message out to these retailers that Thursdays are never a good thing. That is a wrong to have these employees not enjoy Thanksgiving. Put it out there, make it clear. And I'm not just talking about, Black Friday sales, but also, unless your house is on fire or whatever the case may be, if the cable goes out, call them on Friday. Don't, if the power goes out, it's fine. They have an automated system. That sucks. That's one of those emergency things you have to have, especially if you're in the middle of winter in some places. I understand that. But if the cable goes out or the internet goes out, learn how to communicate with each other, and the kids will just have to learn not to have their toys. It's okay to have that happen occasionally. Put a message out there saying to retailers and all these employees, employers that make their employees work on Thanksgiving not to do it. And it's even gas stations, fill up the day before if you're driving. If you can manage it to where you don't have to stop for gas, but except when you're, whatever the case may be, try not to do any retail or anything like that, as much as possible. You know, try to engage in another way that isn't that isn't retail based, or whatever. Don't go to gas stations, don't go ever. Show these companies that it's okay to close on Thanksgiving. It's okay to close on Christmas. Because I honestly think that needs to happen in this nation. That there needs to be days where no one, that people can spend time with their family. Or if there has to be somebody that it's just so few people that they are not, that it can be volunteer basis, that people can volunteer. But for the most part, try not to have that happen if at all possible. Try to fill up the day before, get all the snacks and everything else, put them in the refrigerator, leave them in the car, whatever the case may be. If you're driving and if you're flying, try to fly out the day before or 2 days before. I know that hotels have to have their individuals there if you're staying in a hotel, but, try to minimize the consumer footprint that you leave on holidays, especially Thanksgiving and Christmas. But especially, I would love to have a message sent to all these retailers that Black Friday is still Black Friday, and not to start having their sales on Thursday at 5 p.m. Because that is just wrong in so many levels to me. And I think that is unfair to so many people. That being said, let me do some housekeeping. So, September and I have decided that we are going to take a hiatus from the main show, which is the Heresy and Hearsay show. We're going to take a hiatus from that until the 1st of January. Let me look at the calendar because I didn't pull that up, and I do apologize for that. I should have had that pulled up well in advance so that I could provide you with rough dates on that. So we're looking probably the 8th because Thursday, the 7th. We're looking at the 7th at 7 p.m. We'll be hopefully back on Twitch. We're trying to line up a few things for that as far as that particular day, as I don't want to say relaunch, but as we get ready for the election year and everything else. We both decided to have some breathing room to not be so engaged in politics. Well, she's not going to be so engaged. The other thing is I'm going to be doing Reverend Barney sermons. I'm going to continue them on. I'm going to at least do one a week, and then during the time frame, and then I'm going to continue on one per week even after we start recording. So I will put out 2 recordings. One will be the main show, which is the show that I want to work on. But this is more of me rambling about and talking about, like the subject Thanksgiving. Maybe next week I may start doing the church and fascism thing just to have something to do, or I may be talking about Christmas because Christmas is a rough time for Reverend Barney. And I may explain that and go into details about what goes on in my life, or what led to that. So that is, some of the things, like I said, we'll be back around, hopefully January 7th, is not the following week, and I'll keep us up to date with that, but January 7th sounds like the best date for us right now. I will also, like I said, be recording the sermons on a weekly basis and hopefully keep those going. Forgive me if I miss a week. I do have depression, and sometimes it's hard to even manage enough energy to do that kind of stuff. That being said, I do want to thank you for joining us here at Heresy and Hearsay and Reverend Barney Sermons. I'm Reverend Barney, and you can follow me on Twitter at SethRothII. You can also follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and as well as podcasts. We also have our website. Just Google us. Don't forget our Patreon page at patreon.com/heresy and hearsay, where $2 a month can keep us going. And you can find my partner on Twitch and Twitter at 9 of 12. That's NINEOF 12. And you can hear her on the Geek Grill podcast. Thank you for joining me today. Try and do one selfless act today and be blessed. And I say this to the night, let us not forget there is hope. Peace and love.